I hate re-recording stuff so much. Hey guys, Blank here. This is the third time I'm doing this stupid thing. Uh, to get straight into it, here we have the density of gameplay chart made by the Electric Underground. And this is one of my favorite charts because it perfectly encapsulates uh, states of gaming, for lack of a better term. And I've been seeing this chart posted around, and I wanted to talk about it because I feel like people have been misconstruing what this chart is supposed to represent and how it's viewed. And I feel like Mark, the Electric Underground, didn't really capture the nuances of these three states. So here we have a collection of just games I thought off the top of my head that really, which I think captures these different states. So we have Nights in the Nightmare, which is an SRPG made by Sting, and Sting is notorious for uh, attacking on extremely dense elements onto RPGs or SRPGs. Nights in a Nightmare, to sum it up, your cursor that you use to control and move your characters is also your health, kind of. And on the map, there will be bullets shooting, and your cursor can be hit by them, so your cursor has to avoid them. But you also have to move around your units around the map. There are tons of secrets in this game, and it's really hard to get to. It's extremely complicated. It's very dense, moment to moment. It's from the very the beginning of the game, how you control. It's just dense action, action, action. Down here we have Marble Madness. I'm not sure about this pick, but in Marble Madness you control a marble, and the objective is to get to the bottom of the level here. And the marble is extremely fragile. It's like made of super thin glass, and the timer is extremely strict. So it's constant moment to moment, in that you have to be precise in your movement while also being fast. And over here we have Super Mario 64. And Super Mario 64 is a collectathon, and it doesn't really ask much from the player aside from knowing how to jump, and that's kind of it. The enemies don't really pressure you. There's no timer. There's nothing really pushing the player to. You can just leave the console on, and nothing will happen to you. Down here we have Minecraft, which is a game about nothingness. But in that nothingness, you can create your own fun. And there is an ending to the game, but it's not. There's nothing really pushing you to it. You can just pick up and waste your time, essentially. You create your own fun. In here, in the middle, we have modern indie. I'm not really a big fan of really labeling the middle section as indie, but because, for example, we have Thracia, my favorite SRPG, and that doesn't. There's no strict timer, really pushing you to make your moves or whatever. But there is pressure in that if you take too long in some of your turns, eventually there will be lots of reinforcements. Uh, the level design is very unforgiving, in that you should pay attention. It's kind of moment to moment in that positioning, uh, keeping track of your weapon durability and whatnot. Super Robot Wars original generations on the Game Boy can also go here because of the getting the battle masteries and getting on hard mode. That's kind of function as ranked, but there's also no real timer. You can leave the game on, nothing bad will happen to you. Yeah. Down here we have Tales of the Abyss. Any Tales of game could really work here because they're RPGs but with an action system. So they're they're moment to moment, in that every random encounter is becomes a fighting game, essentially, basically. It's moment to moment in that aspect, but also there's RPG elements. So there's grinding and reading the story and whatnot. All of these games are pretty good, pretty great, but obviously some designs work better in one format, while others uh, could get too extreme. Like this isn't always extremely dense gameplay isn't always the best choice. And my theory about that is that back in the day, when consoles were starting to replace arcades, uh, obviously you can't have super difficult Duodonpachis and shmups and beat 'em ups, because there's once the player buys the game, they have the game. There's no real, the company isn't making any more profits off their quarters and whatnot. There's no incentive for the company to make their games harder, unbelievably harder. So with that, developers, with the console safely in the player's home, developers could finally like focus more on the other elements of games. So like story, experiences, point and click horror. You have those. You have Final Fantasy and those stories. So eventually, game design started gradually shifting towards the middle here, where it became less action to action. Let the player sit and relax from time to time. There's another version of this chart which places DMC 3 here. I can kind of see it. They placed DMC 3 here and DMC 1 here, which I don't really get. I can kind of see it, but I would reverse them, because DMC 1 being a Resident Evil prototype kind of first, there's a lot more incentive for you to explore around and read descriptions of things that's still in the game of DMC 1, while in DMC 3 it cuts all that, and so it's more action in a way. It's kind of like right here. So back to my theory, since the developers could spend more time focusing on how the player would view the game, I guess, perceive it, play the game, I guess, a lot more risk could be taken with how games were designed back in the day. And so gradually game designs shifted here. This is where your Metal Gears and whatnot become. But nowadays we have shifted all the way to the left here, where open world games and wasting the player's time with quote unquote infinite possibility is seen as this great thing in gaming, which it's not. That's a bad thing, because it is straying. It's probably gaming has gone all the way. Like we've gone off the chart. We have forgotten like what games are over here. And that's a bad thing, because we are straying too far from. Maybe I should make this red. This cursor a little bigger. We're straying too far from what makes games different from other mediums. We are like books are words on a page, but you can't have a book without like pages or words. Obviously you have strayed too far from a book if you don't include those things. And likewise, if there's no game in the games, then you have strayed too far from what sets gaming apart from other mediums. There's no movie without like a screen. That analogy probably doesn't make sense. but you get the point, viewer. You get the point. Uh, so uh, obviously this section here, right here, it's not all bad because this is where your Metal Gear 3, Metal Gear Solid 3s come in. What else? Wow, those freaking your RPGs come in here. Final Fantasy 7, maybe. I don't know. This section just isn't entirely bad, and this section isn't entirely good. Also, another thing I noticed with this section is that indie developers that are making classically styled games make their games look like a dog water. That is, no one wants to play a game that looks terrible. You obviously need to have good visuals. That a game that looks terrible but like plays nice, like Pong on the Atari Jaguar. I don't know, the Atari. A game with like no graphics at all. You have strayed too far into this section where it's just raw gameplay, raw whatever. But I think that's enough. I think I said enough about this. Hopefully you understand it. Hopefully it makes sense. And goodbye.